This is the Resilient and Resource Podcast. Today I chat with Erica, who remembers resenting how often she was told that she was resilient, especially when what she really wanted was just a little bit of help. I think we can all relate to that through these many pandemic months that the word resilient is getting tired and losing its shine. As a fellow writer and lover of words, I love how Erica sees writing as a resource for her and for others. Her view of stories and their power to connect us to ourselves and to each other is a fresh take that I've been thinking about ever since our conversation. Tune in to find out how Erica was able to shift from a pushing through mindset to trusting herself and asking for support from others. So today I'm chatting with Erica, and we're going to hear her story, her views on what it means to be resilient and maybe accessing resources throughout her life. So welcome here, Erica.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And I'm excited to hear your story. So let's just dive right into what is your view of resilience? So this could be, from as far back as childhood, or it could be something more recently that you've been discovering and learning. So just tell me a little bit about what you see as resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent a little bit of time this morning really trying to think of resilience. It's definitely a term that I've heard a lot through my life. I've been told by numerous people, it's been this constant, oh, you're such a resilient person. You're so resilient. So I've heard it a lot. However, I have to say, I always hated it. I hated being told I was resilient. I actually was trying to find. Actually, I'd written something about resiliency about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, and something along the lines of, "You may think I'm resilient, but I'm not bulletproof." Along those lines, and I remember thinking that I wanted, as much as I guess it was a compliment to be told I was resilient, that part of it was a facade. And I was looking very resilient on the outside, but on the inside, I was crumbling. And I didn't want to be told I was resilient. I wanted someone to help me. And I wasn't being offered any assistance. I was I was just being told I was really resilient. So yeah, for the longest time, I really resented that. I don't anymore because I can see it, and I don't. I think I'm coming at it from a different place. In that I don't think, not that I don't need anyone's help, but I am more confident in where I'm at right now, and I can see that as more as a compliment. But at the time, I really needed help more so than these compliments of resiliency.
So that's a really interesting perspective about being the strong one, always told you're strong, but not feeling that. So, what was that like though when you went to ask for support? Did you feel because you were the strong one that you couldn't ask for help or support?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would have always told people that asking for help is a brave thing to do. I was a strong mental health advocate, but when it came to my own mental health and my own challenges, I resisted it. I definitely felt like I shouldn't be asking for help. And I think in a way it was like, well, I'm so strong, so why should I ask for help? And it was it was all about pushing myself through these situations, and being as strong as I could, so that I could, because I'm like, okay, I'm strong, I can do it, I can push through. I wanted help, but yeah, I definitely, I wasn't asking for it at all. And I think that's a bit what shifted for me, was learning that it was okay to ask for help.
So when did that shift happen? Like what maybe experiences in your life or things that happened that uh, brought you to the point where you could ask for help?
So basically, my body collapsed on me. It was, and it's ironically, it happened at a time where I thought things were going really well, for me, and I mean, I was in a really awful, work situation at the time, but otherwise, and there were some challenges but for the most part, I'd gotten through what I thought was like the hardest part of my life. And then all of a sudden, my body just completely crumbled. I was in constant pain. Like it was like physical pain, like my like neck and back and shoulder issues. My arms were going numb. Um, I was on like this heavy dose of medication. Um, I was feeling constant, just the only way I could describe it was like a buzzing, like this vibration through my body all the time. And at that point, I just physically could not go through it anymore. And I started by reaching out to my family doctor, who thankfully was amazing. She's absolutely incredible. And she saw me weekly um, for months, and then bi-weekly, and then once a month. But this went on for about a year of these consistent meetings with her, appointments, little check-ins. And I'm so grateful that she was able to provide that for me.
Right. So as along with your family doctor, were there other resources that you accessed during that time, during that year?
Yeah. So professionally, I definitely would sought out other assistance. So I saw a counselor, I saw osteopath, chiropractic, massage therapy, um, physiotherapist, you name it. I think I saw them. Naturopath. I was doing breathing therapy for a while, and I did neurofeedback as well. So I kind of went from the extreme of not getting, seeing anybody to all of a sudden seeing absolutely everyone, because I hated how I was feeling. And I think the kicker for me was suddenly someone I told me that what I was feeling wasn't normal, and I actually thought everyone felt that way. Um, I was like, well, everyone, like, this is just normal, and I'm just, I can't handle it. So there's something wrong with me. And it was in a conversation of like, no, like, no, this is not normal. Not everyone feels this way all the time. So then knowing that I didn't want to feel it anymore. I started really seeking out that help. And it started professionally for sure. But then I was able to branch out to friends and other non-professional resources.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah. What happened then after that year of pain and getting all the professional help and then reaching out to other people? Where does that leave you now as far as resilience and then seeking supports throughout your life?
So definitely at this point, I'm finding the resilience really is coming from deep within myself. That it, I went from really needing the support of other people to access that, and now I'm able to access it internally a lot more than I ever was before. Um, to say, I mean, I think what happened is like it was almost after the year of professional help and all that that I really made some big changes in my life. I left my job. I ended a relationship, and and some of the things weren't necessarily awful. They just weren't working for me, and I had to acknowledge that it wasn't. This isn't working for me, and I need other ways, other things in my life to help me. So that's I made all these changes. I launched my business as a way to really focus in on myself and to be true to what I wanted, and what was important to me. Spending that time to do things just for me was huge, and something that I never really ever, maybe as since a teenager, ever did. So that felt really good. And then I wrote a book about it and published that.
Oh, I'd love to hear about this. Tell me about your book.
Yeah. So writing has always been a way for me to to manage. So it's definitely one of my coping strategies. And I have always wrote, and it's funny, I recently looked back at my life, and as one does at times, right? We look back, and I was like, thinking of some of the happiest times of my life, the most challenging times of my life, and I could actually pinpoint my most unhappy times of my life as times that I was not writing or creating in any way. There is about a decade in there of my life, and I had stopped all of my creating, and definitely was unhappy. And it's, I don't know what came first, right? Chicken or the egg? Did I stop creating because I was unhappy? Was I unhappy because I stopped creating? But regardless, it was very unhappy. And so I know that writing is how I process how I'm feeling, and it's a great way for me to release stress. So, writing my story and what had happened to me, I did that for myself. I actually just sat down one day, sat outside in my backyard, and wrote a story about how I was feeling. And it was kind of in a way that I was never able to explain it because no one could see that there was anything wrong with me. I looked fine on the outside. And for that whole year, like I would, be at work and try to explain that I'm really not well, and needed some accommodations. And I was being told, well, you look fine. There's nothing, you seem okay. And it was like, okay, but I'm not. And not being able to really explain what was happening to me. So ultimately, and I don't, it was anxiety, which is what I was officially diagnosed with, was the anxiety disorder, which was causing so much physical distress that it was completely interrupting my life. And so I felt it through my body, and it was something that was new to me. The idea that anxiety or any sort of mental health could be that physical. I resisted the diagnosis for a very long time, but eventually was like, okay, let's see, let's pretend it is anxiety and make some accommodations. And sure enough, that's what it was. So I wrote about that experience, about having this feeling inside of me that nobody else could see or hear or feel except for me, and just kind of how lonely that is and scary it is. And then gradually being able to be at peace with it and come to terms with what was happening. And eventually other people in my life were realizing, like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that, I see where this is. And the relief inside when someone else says, I get it, yeah, that part is huge. So that's basically what this story is. And then I published it because I wanted other people who were experiencing it to know that they weren't alone in it, because I found so much relief in someone telling me that they got it, that I wanted to do that for other people.
So, what's the name of the book?
It's called Pixie and the Bees.
Okay, so listeners
Yeah.
can look that up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you can order it through any bookstore at all, and it's on my website as well. And some local stores as well will carry it.
So, tell me a little bit more about your business. You were telling me how writing is a process for you, and you started this business about stories. So, tell me a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, so I launched Open Skies Stories as a way for me. It started, I would say, I called it a bit of a passion project, that I just wanted something from me. Stories were always really important to me. Words have always been really important to me. I actually majored in linguistics years ago, just not really been anything that I've used in my life otherwise, but words have always had that importance and meaning to me. So I launched it, and wasn't entirely sure. Like, it's definitely evolved along the way, but I wanted a way to share some inspiration for people, and share ways that I have used writing, um, to help me in my everyday life. So it has evolved a little bit from there. It, it's become more of a community, I think, than a business, and I love that. I love the fact that, I do feel a huge sense of community, especially in my Instagram platform. There's friendships that I've actually, like true friendships that I've made, and collaboration projects that are being done. And so it's all about stories and just the importance of having, talking about your story, and whether or not you share it with the world, or you just write it down, I think it's equally as powerful. Just by writing your story or writing how you feel on a piece of paper makes it real. It suddenly stops floating around in your head, as this like, it I'm trying to think of the word. Like, it's just like floating there in your mind without having real substance. And then as soon as I put it down on paper, then it's real, it's living. That my experience is true all of a sudden because I can see it. It makes it more tangible. So that's why I write, and those are some of the things that I talk about on Open Sky Stories in the platform that I have.
And are you finding that other people who are in the community and joining the platform are finding the same benefits, I guess is the word, by using writing in their own life to express themselves, to make their feelings more concrete, that kind of thing you're talking about, putting it down on paper? Are you getting feedback? Yeah.
I am, yeah, it's great. Some people who are, as part of the community, this isn't new to them. This is something that they've been doing. But it's nice to have, like, yeah, right, me too. That feels so good. So other people who have already been, using writing as a way to process their day and their thoughts, are on the community. And then there's other people who are brand new to writing, that it's not something that is what they would typically do, but they're reaching out to me and telling me that they're finding some inspiration with that. I also have offered a couple Write Club stories, where I guide people through a process of using words as a way to process and to just, really really look at your relationship with writing in a different way. Yeah, I think initially I kind of, when I thought about, Open Sky Stories, I didn't want it to be like for writers, a place for writing advice, because I just didn't think that's. I mean, there's a lot of places you can go if you want writing advice. If you want to learn about how to write a novel, how to get published, writing tips, things like that. That's not what I wanted to do. Mine is more focused on connection, through writing.
Yeah, that's lovely. I really, really like that. The idea of a community to make connections instead of, yeah, giving advice or a business, yeah, that kind of thing. That's great. Yeah. Earlier, you talked about your view of resilience changing. So, hating it when you were young because everyone was telling you, but that you but you weren't feeling it. And then you said now it's deep down. You find it deep down. So I wonder if you could share something that you really love about yourself. Like, because there is clearly, you've made a connection to yourself and you have this awareness now of your own body and the wisdom of your body telling you what's going on. So what is something that you really love about yourself?
That's a good one. So I think a while ago that would have been really hard in that, I don't know if I really did love a lot about myself, and now I'm like, oh, I can only pick one. So many things that I love. So that's
oh, that's beautiful. I love that. We could all be there if only we could all be there.
But I think that, one of the big things is my faith, that things are going to be okay. And it's not in a look on the bright side of things kind of way, because I hate that. But I really do have this deep faith that things are going to be okay. And even through terrible times, I think that I have a way of finding these little sparks of joy that happen within them. Part of it comes from a deep, dark sense of humor, that I have to be really careful about, with who I'm sharing that with. Um, but I definitely, I think, I don't know, I kind of think anyone who's gone through a lot of uh, deep challenges can uh, really respond to that dark sense of humor. But there's that. But I really do, even when things have been the absolute bottom for me, I've I'm still able to see some parts of joy that are happening. Like, and it doesn't have to be a lot. It can just be like you know, just a flower that's like blooming outside, or hearing a song on their radio and feeling a bit happy about that. But so it's that, and just I don't know. And the faith part has always been there. Like, I think that's not new, but I'm more aware of it now, than I was before, and I hold on to it a lot more. Like, it guides me more than it was before. Before it was just there, but now I'm using it more powerfully.
And maybe that's what people saw. So in your past, when people were, responding to maybe this faith that was sort of shining through, that everything was going to be okay, even when you were struggling on the inside, that could possibly be what they were seeing from you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. And I mean, I think for the longest, for like a long time, pushing through was probably a really appropriate response, to what I was going through, and it got me to the other side where I needed to be. So I don't look back and think, oh, I should have done things differently. I mean, I did what I had to do, and it got me to the other side. And now, um, that I was there, I was able to actually then, go deeper and try to, kind of help myself in a different way. I remember my doctor saying once, because early on I said, "Oh, I don't understand. Like, things seem to be going a lot better now. Why is my body collapsing now of all times?" And she was like, "That's really common. That, like, you're in a much safer place than you were, and so your body can collapse, where it wasn't able to do that before." So I was like, "Well, that sucks."
Yeah.
but
But I guess your
yeah,
body knew you were finally
yeah,
in a place you were going to listen. The
yeah,
body was probably giving maybe some signals earlier, but where, like you said, when you're pushing through to get through the other side of a difficult situation, yeah, it can be
yeah,
tough to listen to all the little subtle signals.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
So I have a question for you about this, past over, I guess we're heading up to a year and a half now of this pandemic. And somebody who might be maybe where you were, many years ago when you were struggling
Yeah.
on the inside and nobody could see it, what advice would you give to a person who is struggling like that right now?
I would say to to trust yourself, to trust what you're feeling is real, and that it's okay to feel that way, no matter what it is that you're feeling. It's okay to feel awful and terrible. That's okay. You don't have to, um, always be happy and looking on the bright side and thinking that, thinking differently. Just let yourself feel how it's feeling. But at the same time, um, you don't want to stay there. So it's like, allow yourself to feel that, and trust. So I mean, I know for me, I didn't trust how I was feeling a lot, and that made a difference. So really, and I mean, I definitely sound like a broken record sometime, but write it down. uh, write down how you're feeling, and then kind of re-examine that, and reach out for help. I can't stress that enough either. And professional help, I mean, friends obviously are wonderful, and I got through a lot of this through friends, but for me, I really did need some professional assistance through it. So your idea, like the professional that someone else seeks, might be different than who I saw, but and try different things, because what works for one person isn't going to work for another. So just because you saw one family doctor and it didn't work out, don't abandon that idea. But yeah, just really, I think just really trust that what you're feeling is real.
Yeah,
Um, and
that's
then
great advice.
you
And
can go from
I
there.
think what I find most inspiring about your story, and you sort of said it in a way I don't think that I've heard before, was that transition that you went from seeking support on the outside, and that built up your resilience in a sense, or at least your new view of resilience, and then it went inside, and then now
Yes.
it was the external resilience through resources
Yep.
helped you build your internal sense of resilience. And I just think that is part of, like, the advice you just said. Reaching out for help
Yeah.
is not saying you're not resilient, and it's not keeping you from becoming resilient. In fact, that is what is going to help you build that deep inner sense of resilience, is reaching out to other people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that we're all resilient people. Like, I think that it's inside all of us already. So I don't think that you actually have to. Um, uh, I don't think you have to get resilience. It's there, but we're not always accessing it. And so, by seeking professional assistance in whatever way works for you, can help you access it
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
more positively.
Absolutely. So, what is on the horizon now for you and writing?
Yeah.
Are you working on some new works, or things in your community, or some writing that is just from you personally?
Yeah, so I am working on two collaborative projects right now. One of them is called the Mail Art Stories Project. And so, since the pandemic started, so March of last year, 2020, myself and an artist from North Carolina have been collecting pieces of mail art from around the world. And the mail art is to kind of demonstrate people's experience of the pandemic. And on the piece of mail art, we've asked them to include 3 words or phrases that describe the pandemic to them. So it's been great. We've received responses from all over the world, and we've been gathering these things up. And there's a survey at the end of it that we're asking people to complete that goes into more detail about their experience of the pandemic. And then we're putting it all together, and we're writing a book, myself and Shannon. So that's pretty exciting. And it's been really neat to see people around the world, how we're all experiencing the pandemic very similar, but also differently. So that's a fun project. We haven't started the writing yet, but very soon we will be doing that. Um, and the other collaborative writing project I'm doing is called the Connected Stories Project. And this is a project that I started. It was one of the first projects that I started actually through Open Sky Stories. And I wanted one sentence per person about what beauty means to them. And so I have collected over 100 submissions, and I think it's like 11 different countries about beauty. And I have all of these sentences, and I'm in process of writing a story using all of the sentences. And it's a way to show that we're connected beauty,
Oh,
and through
that's
words around
amazing.
the world.
I love that idea um, of you're concretely connecting people's sentences to show the idea of connection. Like that's really,
Yeah,
really beautiful. I have, yeah.
yeah,
No, go ahead.
yeah. I'm really
That's
excited.
okay.
What?
We'll just cut that part out.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, yeah, that's okay. No, I'm really excited about it. I think it's gonna be. It's harder than I thought. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna write it in like a day. Like, yeah, no. Um, but it's interesting for me to see the themes that are emerging through people's sentences. So beauty. I had a strong response from South Africa, and so seeing beauty from South Africa as opposed to, say, New Zealand and the UK and Canada. There's differences, but there's definite themes that emerge. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah, that's really, really fascinating. Yeah, I can't wait to see that. I started following you on social media so I can keep
Yeah.
up with what you're doing. So I encourage listeners as well to please check out all of Erica's Open Sky stories, and I will put the links in the show notes. As well as checking out the book Pixie and the Bees. It's available everywhere you can buy books. I noticed it
Yeah.
on Amazon. I was reading some of the reviews, and there were some lovely reviews of people saying how it was really powerful for them. I know my sister is encouraging. She bought a copy for her daughter and is encouraging our family members to get copies as well. So,
Yeah,
Erica, I want to
thanks.
thank you so much. I have loved having this conversation, and every time I have a conversation, I learn something new about resilience, and today is no different. I love your passion for using writing as a connecting tool, not as well connecting with other people, but also that they can connect with themselves by writing
Yeah.
down what they're feeling, and your encouragement for people to reach out and get help when they need it, but also to have faith and trust in what they're feeling is just beautiful and is making the world a better place. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This has been
Yeah.
nice. It's been great to
Yeah.
chat. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Danette.
Yeah. Okay. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.